Hi, everyone. Before the episode begins, I just want to remind you to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Marlene the Plant Lady and YouTube, Everything Gardening with Marlene Simon. And remember, please, please, please rate and review on iTunes and Spotify. That just helps the podcast get noticed by more people, and then more people will become better gardeners. And that's what we all want. So enjoy the episode.
Look at that plant. I want you to know that everything was grown in my garden. Don't touch that plant!
Is it poisonous?
She'll become part of the plant.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flower Power Garden Hour. I'm your host, Marlene, and this is your November to-do list and also question and answer. And yes, I did not post an October or September to-do list for various reasons. One, just being incredibly busy and just time got away from me. Sad thing is we actually recorded them. It was more of the editing and getting them out there. And then it was towards the end of the month. And I'm like, Joe, just forget it. So this one we will get out.
I think we had a good discussion on one of them too, about the questions, because I did edit it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We should use it at one time.
Okay. We always have good discussions, Joe. They're just usually about things like mundane things or cat things.
No, it was one where I think you were arguing.
Well, and
me.
I was going to say, you consider a good conversation one where you think you're, quote, winning it. And I don't think those are good conversations at all. So, all right. So, Joe, back in your corner, Joe, back in your corner. You have to come out with the questions. This is November to-do list. But of course, you could interject if you feel like it. So November, yes, change finally. I think we had like 2 weeks of fall weather, or what my ideal summer would be here in Zone 9. So yes, remember, I'm coming at this from Zone 9. If you're in a different zone, look it up, USDA, and you can find your zone. So some of the stuff may be relevant. Others, it may be completely different. So I'm in a pretty warm zone. We do get frost, though, so it's not perfect. Hot, heat, and cold. Can I move back to San Diego, Joe?
No, negative.
Yeah, and it's too crowded for me down there. All right, so what to plant in your vegetable garden? So right now you can direct sow or plant fava bean plants, bok choy, celery, Swiss chard, garlic. Everyone loves planting garlic. I don't know how much garlic people use, but they love it. Kale, kohlrabi, lettuce, mustard, onions, peas, radish, shallots, spinach. And you notice that, cauliflower and broccoli wasn't there because the window to plant those was a bit ago, starting in August. There's another chance early spring to plant some of those. Also,
Question.
yes, Joe.
Okay. Don't sound disgusted already that I'm asking you a question.
Yes, Joe. Go on, please.
You said that the window was missed for those.
Yes.
Why?
Because they're very light sensitive. They need to be established before the shorter days come. Else, if you plant them, they'll just sort of quickly bolt. And even then, when you plant them, sometimes they'll bolt. You could have two plants that you bought in the same 6-pack planted right next to each other, and they'll bolt, i.e. go to flower before they start producing. Brussels sprouts are notorious for that. I had that happen last year with some broccoli planted at the same time. Some bolted, not. But it's sort of, they need to get into the ground, sort of established, and then, yeah.
It's an hours of daylight issue.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I thought it was going to be more of a temperature issue.
No, these all handle pretty cold temperatures. Also, what you want to plant right now, perennials. It's still warm. The soils are still warm enough. Night temperatures are still warm enough to plant perennials, of course, except frost sensitive. No citrus, no avocados, no frost sensitive salvias. We are dipping down into the high 30s coming up soon. So really, I would say mid-November, I would maybe stop planting California natives. I know people who plant California natives all through, as long as you could work the soil, meaning it's not waterlogged. You never want to work wet soils. Spring blooming bulbs like your irises and your tulips and your daffodils and your crocus and your hyacinths, those you could all plant now. cover crops. I mentioned you could plant fava beans to harvest, but you could also plant fava beans as a cover crop if you want to get nitrogen in there. Crimson clover, it's an annual. And remember, for both of those, cut them down while they're blooming. Don't let them go to seed, else you won't get the full effects of the nitrogen into your soil. Also, you could plant spring blooming annual seeds, including natives. So just sort of go out there. If you have a patch of area, you do sort of want to rake up the ground a little bit, rough it up so the seeds have a place to adhere to. And this includes sweet peas. A lot of people miss the boat on sweet peas. And once you have sweet peas, they generally just start popping up if you let them go to seed. And right now, sweet peas are already popping up for me. But right now, you can plant sweet pea seeds. And yes, you should soak them. I don't necessarily soak them. I mean, the seeds for 24 hours. It just sort of breaks the seed coat. Clean up your garden. But remember, let's keep a balance between getting it too pristine and clean and having enough leaf debris, dead twigs, cut down stuff for birds and overwintering beneficial insects to use as their habitat. So, clean up, of course, anything that you thought was diseased. Old fruit, always clean up old fruit so you don't have, fungal gnats and diseases growing in that. You could also cut things down if you want to tidy up things. But remember, don't prune back anything that was a once blooming, spring blooming. So don't cut your forsythias right now. Don't cut your once blooming, early spring blooming roses. Don't cut your wisteria right now. Those should all be pruned, or your camellias. Those should all be pruned right after they're done flowering in spring. Don't prune any frost-sensitive plants. Any foliage, leave that on, acts as a blanket. Digging up and dividing perennials. Yes, now is the time. They're going dormant. Even if they're not fully dormant, you could still dig them up, like cannas, agapanthus, grasses. Just dig them up. Use a digging fork. Just sort of jab them right in the middle there. Use a serrated knife to cut them. So that's a good time. Also dividing up your irises. If you have poor blooms, small blooms, you can literally see the rhizomes popping up from the ground. That's a good time to divide them. Avoid transplanting succulents, especially in the ground if we're getting some rain. Even in pots, if you could put them away where they're not going to get inundated with rain, you could do that. But remember, it's best to treat succulents and to transplant succulents when they're actively growing. Usually that's spring. Order your seeds for next year. I know that Wild Boar Farms, Brad Gates, is releasing some of his new hybrids. Did you shake your head, Joe?
Yeah, not at you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a cat outside.
Oh, I can't hear it. Okay. Yes, Brad Gates is releasing some seeds, so you want to jump on that. New hybrids. And, of course, weed control. Zone 9, we're, quote, lucky enough to have winter weeds. And one of those big ones is oxalis, and just smother it. So it has tubers in the ground, and then once you let it go to flower, it sets seeds. So smother with cardboard and just try to prevent those seeds from going into the ground. So it's too early for any like bare root crops. That's going to be in January, but there's still plenty to do in the garden in November. Just remember, once again, if we get some rains, don't dig and work wet soils because you don't want to compact, lose the air spaces in them at all. So, all right, Joe, you ready for some questions?
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay. I've bugged you about this before.
You want me to write this down and list it?
Your list of especially plants.
Okay.
Yeah. I think you need to write it down. You can divvy it up. You did vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
You did flowers.
Mm-hmm.
It was a long list.
Okay.
It's fast.
Okay.
Post it.
Got it.
Maybe in multiple places.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
All right.
All right.
I'll be checking in on that.
Great.
It's an action item.
You know what I do to the action items you give me?
Not do them.
Exactly. I'm really like a teenager. You tell me to do something and ask me.
You say you'll do it.
And okay. I'm more like an old person. I forget. I said I was going to rebel and be like,
Yeah.
I'm not doing it, but I just forget.
By the way,
Yeah.
a friend of ours,
Uh-huh.
Shock, showed me something you posted today.
Was it the Huell-Hauser haunted
Yeah.
TV?
Yeah.
Our TV is haunted by Mr. McNeil. So our house is about 100 years old. So our TV, just what happened, I go and TV's not on all day, probably for 2 days. I go and I sit in the TV room and the TV just comes on. Remotes are far away from me. TV just turns on. It goes directly to
But that's been happening for quite a long time.
our TV's been haunted for quite a while.
Okay.
Quite a while. TV goes directly onto Apple TV. We have 3 remotes. You have to have all, and they're very complicated remotes. Automatically goes.
So what's it been doing in the past, historically, for the past however long?
Turning off on me.
But just for you.
Just for me. It does not like HGTV at all.
Or.
Golden Girls.
Or.
Baking shows.
Yep.
Do you have control of the remotes, Joe? So yesterday I go to sit down and Apple TV, and all of a sudden starts typing in the search bar, and it types in, turn on Huell-Hauser right now. I did not speak that. I did never spoke that.
There was one time
We've watched Huell-Hauser. We definitely watched Huell-Hauser. And that's the thing. Most of the time, Mr. McNeil, the ghost of Mr. McNeil, turns the TV off, turns Apple TV on, and then flips through Huell-Hauser. And we're like, okay, we'll watch Huell-Hauser. Sometimes he goes to RFD TV. So after I sat there for a bit and did not acknowledge Mr. McNeil, the TV turned off. TV turned on a little bit ago. And where did it go? It went to RFD TV, Molly B's Polka. Yep, Molly
Polka
B.
Party.
Molly B Polka Party.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, RFD TV. And I would never.
We've watched actually quite a bit of Molly B's Polka Party.
Because you turn it on, and then I'm just mesmerized by it, but I would never.
I'm saying we have watched quite a bit of it.
Anyways. Oh, and then what was the last one? I recorded it because he was getting demanding. Like, turn on Huell-Hauser right now.
The one that you sent me last night when you told me to come downstairs or something.
Yeah.
Or no, I was out feeding the cats.
Yes.
Yeah. I think he said something about Molly B's Polka Party.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Something like,
yes,
like turn it on now. He's getting very demanding.
Well, he has good taste.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyway, so yes, our TV is haunted by Mr. McNeil. I'm glad we could give him some entertainment. But we're in sort of a war because I yell at him sometimes because I'm literally trying to watch something and he'll just turn it off. Yeah. Okay. Question time.
All right. Can you plant sweet pea seeds now or is it too late? This is from, it's either Sherry or Cher.
Do you think it's cherry?
Sherry?
Cherre?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's okay. So I actually mentioned this right in the November to-do list. No, zone 9, zone 9 in warm zones like 9 and 10 and probably even 8. You could plant sweet pea seeds now. And if you've already had sweet peas, you probably have some coming up now. So don't pull them out. Don't think, oh, these are weeds. But you could also plant them in late winter as well. You could plant them in, I would say in our zone, go ahead and plant them in like February. For cooler climates, don't plant them now. You could plant them, a few weeks before. I hear a cat. Yes. So late winter. And it is a good idea to soak the seeds 24 hours in warm luke water or even just a wet paper towel so it sort of breaks that seed coat. And then planting is simple. You just plant them down like a half inch, if not even that, and just, worked soil. You don't want it to be in like bone dry, heavy clay, but they handle pretty much anything.
Okay. Next question. I live in Lodi and want to split from my existing elephant ear, bird of paradise, and banana tree plants. She wants to split new starts to be placed in the ground. Where, when do I cut? Do I need to dig the entire plant or just cut a new start? Do I need to prepare the soil in any special way? Please help.
Okay.
Kathy.
Okay. So, similar, but all a little bit different. So elephant ear, like colocasia, taro, and it's tubers. Did I say tara? Like the plantation taro? It's taro. Taro. How come I can't say that?
Taro?
Yeah.
Taro.
Edible. Yeah. So those are tubers. So in winter in Lodi, which is Central California, zone 9, they're going to be hit by frost and the foliage is going to die down. Chances are the tubers are going to be fine unless it's in a heavy, rainy, poor draining area. So they could survive. They just don't look great or they die down all the way. I would wait for that to happen and then dig them up. And then you just sort of separate the tubers from there. Now your bird of paradise won't die down. And for that, no, you don't need to dig it out of the ground necessarily, unless you know you want a very specific size or a piece, and then that's going to be easier to control. But for bird of paradise, and even the banana tree, but I'll take bird of paradise first, get a very sharp shovel and literally just sort of jam it between where looks like there are plantlets. You could see where the leaves emerge from a central point coming out of the ground. And so that would be like one section, one plant. So go between them and just sort of push that shovel all the way down into the ground and work around it. They handle being transplanted with very few roots. So no need to worry if you don't get the biggest root ball. Of course, the bigger the root ball, the better. You might want to tie up the leaf so they're not getting in your way. So tie them up so you could work around it. And of course, do this when the soil is slightly moist, not sopping wet at all. But like I said, if you want to be really extra careful, then yes, dig the whole entire thing up, use a serrated knife, pull it apart. But usually you'll look at a plant and see where it looks like there's individual plants forming. Now, banana trees are a little bit different. We transplant and divide a lot of banana trees at work because we need them for lab classes and we need them small so they could be carried. So we're constantly taking the small plantlets off of the mature plants. And what I find is the smallest little shoots off to the side, i.e. like 3 inches or less, don't really take separated from the mother plant. Then again, too big, it's also a little risky as well. So when they're about maybe a foot, that's ideal. Foot to maybe 3 feet, that is an ideal size. And I do find it is easier digging them up and using sort of a serrated knife to cut around. Now, they're very interesting because they're almost just growing out as an appendage to the plant. It's not a separate plant. And when they're too young, you're not really even going to get any roots from them. You may get one root, but I find if I sacrifice cutting into the mom plant a little bit, I get a bigger portion. I take a portion of the mom plant, but I'm guaranteeing that I'm having all that baby plant there. It's not to say you can't just also take a shovel and shove it between the banana plantlet and the mom plant and it'll be okay. But it's not like you're going to have a perfect little plantlet with a nice little formed root system, but they almost always take. Unless they're like 3 inches or less, that's when I run into problems of not having them take. So when to do it, ideally all this, I mentioned the elephant ears when they're dormant, that's fine. Bird of Paris, banana trees. If you have to do it now, if they're too big, you could do it now, but removing any foliage, anything from a plant right now going into the cold, it might expose what was once protected to the cold. So if you could do this in spring, that's ideal. Preparing the soil, any special way? No, I mean, these all prefer, of course, well draining. Nothing wants to be in standing clay soil, but if you're putting them in pots, just decent potting soil with some pumice will suffice. And then, water them in after you plant them. But yeah, if you can wait till spring, that's ideal. If not, these are hardy plants as far as taking abuse. Your banana trees, they're going to be hit by frost depending on how cold it gets. Does that make sense, Joe? It's one of those where I sort of just wish I could like, here, this is how you do it.
You should make a video on it. You said you do the banana tree plants all the time.
I do.
Yeah, make a video.
Okay.
Yep. I was surprised how big you said the offshoots are for the banana tree plants. 1 foot to 3 feet? That's how long the offshoots are?
Well, I mean, the offshoots eventually become full-size plants.
No, I
And
know.
when I'm saying when I take them,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, okay, so maybe 1 foot to 2 feet. I
Okay,
changed
the way you're holding your hand
yeah, I
makes
know.
me think.
I know. Foot.
I know, but it makes me think that I understood what you said different. Right? And maybe other people are too.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were saying that you only cut off offshoots that are 1 to 3 feet long, like big. The offshoots are that big.
Anywhere from maybe trying to picture.
That's like 6 inches.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to picture 6 inches, 8 inches. Say 8 inches
Okay.
to 3 feet.
Okay. So
Yeah.
big though.
Well, 8 inches is still relatively
Yeah,
small.
but to 3 feet, I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay.
I was just saying I've done it when they're like 3 inches.
Yeah.
That's when it's like
Success rate's lower.
lots lower. And
Yeah.
then if I say 6 inches, it's still a little iffy.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right.
A lot of the stuff I just instinctively do at work and I've never measured it. So when I'm called out on like the sizes, I have to think about.
No,
okay,
I know, but
I
a
know.
difference between 3 feet and 8 inches.
Yeah. No, but it's anywhere from, past 3 feet. It's just it gets too big to sort of separate.
Right.
I mean, it's still doable, but it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you err on the big side. If there's big ones available, you'll take those.
I would take the 2-footer.
Okay, that's still pretty big.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nope, 2-footer.
Right. Can you please advise as to what might be snacking on my Brussels sprouts and Romanesco starter plants? Apparently, she sent you a picture
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and said, whatever this is, it's leaving the chard alone. I tried, calm down. All right. I tried eggshells, snail bait, and I also sprayed for earwigs, but only once so far.
Okay. So we'll just start with the eggshells. Everyone knows how I feel about eggshells.
Well, hold on. She's talking about using these as like pest preventative, right?
Well, obviously not preventative if something's already going after them.
Well, she's trying to prevent
Yes.
more of the pests from coming back.
Yes. And a lot of people would take the eggshells and they lay it on the ground. And
That's
the
what I
idea
was
is that
thinking.
creepy crawlers don't.
Can't crawl over them as much.
Yeah. I mean, you need so many eggshells. They're going to fall into the soil. And in this case, it's not even a creepy crawler that's after them. So she's thinking more towards earwigs. Because a lot of
Okay.
times when
I was thinking she was thinking of what you use for cats.
I use eggshells for cats.
No, but you use broken up potted plants.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Same kind
in,
of thing.
In pots.
In pots.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Okay. But she's wrong.
I'm just saying,
Yes.
that's what my interpretation
Okay.
was.
All right. Do I use snail bait for cats too? Hope not. All right. So, yeah. So I can see where she's coming from with the snails and the earwigs because they both cause holes. So earwigs, they'll cause maybe pencil eraser size holes throughout the plant. Lower down leaves, snails and slugs, you'll usually see the snail trail. They'll eat from the outwards, sort of jagged. But the fact she says that it's on Brussels sprouts leads me right away to think that it is the cabbage looper larvae or the cabbage white butterfly larvae because they just decimate winter crops. And this is just, a question and a problem even in my garden. And so I think I posted on Facebook a bit ago of how well they blend in. They're almost impossible to see. They'll be on the underside of the leaves and they are almost the exact pale green of a leaf, but they also love the top, the midrib of a leaf as well. And so they're very difficult to see. Another telltale sign is you'll see their poo, which is black specks, but they could cause large holes, large jagged holes, but they love Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage. So that's what I'm guessing is going on. And the control really is just go out morning, night until you have it under control and hand pick them off, squish them, feed them to a chicken, birds are good at controlling them. They're probably getting more than you realize. And if you do want to spray, the BT, the bacillus, but of course, don't let it get on any other plants that you want, good moths and good butterflies to go to. But that's your go-to. So yeah, you could snail bait, but I don't think it's a snail slug problem. Of course, still could be. Who knows? But usually, I find like every plant usually outgrows these worms. It's this time of year, but yeah, it does stress them a little bit. So hand pick them off. I had a friend over, and I'm like, "Come on, when we're talking, we're gonna go hand pick worms off." It was fine. He was faster than me, but then again, I had a glass of wine in my hand.
Better than the backpack you usually have.
Of my wine?
Of your wine.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Hands free.
Mm-hmm. I have a Dieffenbachia, and it has grown. It has overgrown, if that's such a thing. I was transplanting it, and the trunk snapped from the roots. Can I save this, and how? Julie. You know what?
No, I don't know what.
Nobody can spell their name normal anymore.
Okay. I mean, what does that even mean? I mean, if that's their name, that's their name.
I know, but I don't recognize any of these names.
Maybe that's more about you.
It is. I don't recognize any of these names.
That's Julie.
Without the E.
Maybe she wants to be a little different.
Or she forgot.
She might have forgot.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like me. I sometimes I'm like, why does my name have this many letters? Why can't it be like Joe? And I would actually drop the E if I were you to save some time.
Probably not going to happen.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the girl version of it, but I would do it pure laziness.
No, I get a letter added
Oh, yeah. You get Jose.
at least 10, 20 times a week.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I get Marilyn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Marilyn sometimes. All right. So Dieffenbachia, common houseplant. It's an aroid. And I'm sure people have seen it. Fairly large leaves, white blotches on it. Very easy to grow. It is toxic to cats if they chew on it a lot. But I think everyone's heard my stories how before I knew it was toxic, I had a cat who would just nibble on it and throw up. But, when cats eat green, they throw up. And it wasn't until later I'm like, oh, poor kitty. High, I believe it's calcium oxalate content in it. So it's not good long term. But they're really easy houseplants to grow. Low water, medium to high light. But they do grow tall, and then they lose the lower leaf. So a lot of people will go, well, wait a minute. Now it's this lanky, strange plant. And the good news is it sounds like Julie's sort of snapped off down at the bottom. So I'm assuming, there's roots and a little bit of the stem still sticking up. The good news is the part that's rooted and broken off down, i.e. the plant, it will eventually send up a side shoot. It can take a while. The other good news is any of the pieces that broke off will root as well. Now, I wouldn't take like a 4-foot section and stick it in soil and have it grow, even though probably it will root. What I would do is take it and split it up into sections. If she just wants one plant, I would take, the top few inches, top foot, and then let that sort of dry down and stick it in some pumice, and that's her plant. And we've also taken sections along the stem, and we've taken pots of just potting soil or pumice and laid them on the sides, and they root, and then the plants will start growing. So really, any which way, you could just root all the pieces, one piece, leave the plant, but it can take a while for them to start growing. So as long as they're not rotting out, they will eventually grow. So the key is to not keep the soil really wet in whatever media you're using to root them in. And they don't need to be bagged in moisture or anything like that. They're not, you don't need a lot of, mainly because there's probably not going to be leaves. Cut some of the leaves off of the cutting as well.
All right. That one makes sense to me.
Okay, good.
Straightforward.
Good.
This one's from Cecily or Cecile.
I think it's Cecile.
I don't think I did either of those options.
What'd you say? You said Cecily.
Yeah.
And then what?
Cecil?
I think you said Cecile.
Cecile? I don't know.
Okay. Cecil.
All right. Cecil.
Well, it's funny because there's a rose called Cecil Brunner, and it's supposed to be Cecile Brunner because it was named after the guy's wife, but everyone calls it Cecil. Cecil Brunner, but it's spelled just the same. But when I see it, think Cecile.
I think Cecil is a male name.
Yeah.
Because I think, what Cecil do you think of?
Fielder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the only one that I know.
Yeah, it's the only one I know.
Yeah. I don't think we can wait for your segment on Good Day to ask our question. Our purple pony plum has become infested with caterpillars. What are they, and what is the best way to get rid of them?
Joe, can you say purple pony plum 3 times fast, please?
I can't say a single person's name on this list, so I definitely can't say that.
Okay. All right. Purple pony plum. Purple pony plum. Okay. All right. So she did send me a picture of this one. Just because you always want to see what kind of caterpillars you're dealing with. Now, the thing with caterpillars is when they attack, and they could defoliate a tree. And your first thought is, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose a tree. Now, almost always an established older tree could handle a caterpillar infestation to the point of defoliation. Is it great for them? No. Is it even gonna, cause an effect come springtime? No. So, leaves are dying down right now in deciduous trees, which these caterpillars go to. But, it definitely, you want to make sure it doesn't happen year after year after year. And so the picture is it's a red humped caterpillar, and it looks just like its name. There's a big red head, and it's got some black spiny stuff on it. And it attacks plums and attacks red buds and walnuts and a lot of deciduous trees. And they just eat the leaves. So right now, you could just leave it, and it'll do its thing and go. And the tree's going to defoliate and go through winter. Come spring, it'll probably be fine. If it's absolutely bothering you, you can use, once again, BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, and spray it. And when the caterpillar eats the BT, which is toxic to them, they will get that toxic, and it'll take a couple days for them to die. There are native... Yes, Joe. That wasn't a question. That was more of a...
Yeah, because I'm thinking in my head if I should ask you this question or not.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, you did tell me beforehand.
That I don't want to think tonight?
You said don't ask any hard questions.
Yeah, but go for it.
Okay. BT.
Yes.
What is the mechanism by which it works?
So as far as I know, it is a crystal in the bacterium that the caterpillars will eat, and they can't digest it. And it literally almost rips open their guts.
Really?
Yeah. Or it paralyzes them, something. Yeah.
Huh.
So it's part of the bacterium that they can't. It's toxic to them.
Not at all what I thought.
Oh, what were you going to think?
I thought it did something to their exoskeleton.
No, because they're eating it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So no, it's a gut. It's a gut thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty brutal.
Yeah. It's horrible.
Yeah. Great. I mean, even though it's organic, it's safe. But I always say,
organic does not mean friendly.
I know. That's what I was saying. Because the other option.
These are organic tacks that you're eating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to mention that the other option is spinosad, but I don't recommend spinosad because it's another bacterium, but it's toxic to bees and it's toxic to a lot of pollinators and beneficials. So it's marked and labeled like organic, but that just goes to show you organic doesn't mean necessarily safe. It just means it's organically derived and it's from bacterium. So if it's bothering you, go ahead and spray BT. If it's still in the early stages where there's still like different developing caterpillar stages, you may think, oh, it's not working, but you have to spray it every 7 to 10 days to get all the different developing ones. So the real control is thinking, okay, what's going to happen next year? So this is a moth, a very sort of undistinguished brown moth. So you may not even notice it flying around, but I would put some yellow sticky traps out come like, I don't know, April around, even before then, to just see if you see the adults flying around. If you're trapping a whole bunch on your yellow sticky traps, well, one, you're controlling the adults that way. You can just have more sticky traps. Two, you could start hosing off the tree, spraying the tree down to get the eggs off of the underside. Their pupae are going to be in the soil underneath the tree as well. So they're going to be burrowing into the organic matter in the soil. And, it's hard to tell moth pupae and beetle pupae from each other. So you may want to give a Google search to try to find what the pupae looks like. But chances are, if you have a whole bunch of one pupae in the soil below the tree, it's probably going to be this, and just dig those up. So try to attack it from all different stages to prevent having to spray the BT and having your tree defoliated again. So yeah, that's what I would do. There are natural predators out there that you may not even be aware working on them. There's different wasps. Trichogramma is a parasitic wasp. You could even buy those. I don't know if I would go to that extent because in an outside situation, it could be a little difficult to get them to go to that spot. But I would look for the pupae. I would look for the eggs. I would monitor for the adults. Go ahead and spray for BT right now. It's going to defoliate anyway. So normally I would say if it was early on in the season and it needed to put on a new flush of leaves, you always want to give it maybe a little bit of fertilizer. But right now it's coming to, those leaves, it's going to go dormant and it's not going to put on any new leaves until next spring. So that's the approach I would take.
Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
It's from UC San Diego.
Okay.
Insect eats BT crystals and spores.
Yeah.
The toxin binds to specific receptors in the gut, and the insect stops eating. This is not immediate. The crystal causes the gut wall to break down, allowing the spores and normal gut bacteria to enter the body. The insect dies as spores and gut bacteria proliferate in the body, outside of the gut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty nasty, huh?
Way nasty.
Yeah.
Like alien type nasty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, BT is very specific, and there's different strains of BT for different types of insects and such.
Yeah, and I think that the strain is Azawii, I think, for this one.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So if you can find that one at the nursery, I don't know if a lot of nurseries label it.
Well, they probably don't out here. I'm guessing when they're talking about this one that I'm looking at right now is specifically more about Midwest farms.
Okay.
And don't they have quite a few different insects than we have out here?
They do, and they're probably very targeted if they're growing certain crops.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have more, but they're talking about for Midwest farms, you're talking about we've got this one specific one to this. We're going to go for the one that's going to treat it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, what farmers could, find and dial in versus a homeowner going, okay, but BT will work in general. That BT thuringiensis. There's different bacillus even.
I get it.
Yeah. Okay.
Targeted warfare versus general warfare.
Yes.
You're talking about general carpet bombing. The farmers back in the Midwest are doing very tactical, strategic warfare.
Why do you have to turn gardening all like warlike?
Well, because your favorite garden show on TV,
oh yeah, the
Farm PhD.
Farm PhD
on Weed of the Week.
Weed of the Week
Has the best
Best
intro.
If you guys want to see like some amazing graphics that I would love, like for like my Good Day segment. Ooh, maybe I could get Good Day to do a segment intro like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They're like, that's out of our budget.
Way.
It's the Weed of the Week, RFD TV's Farm PH.
Farm PhD.
Farm PhD.
Not Farm PH.
Farm PH.
Yes.
Joe, got to figure out your Farm PH. Farm PhD. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing graphics.
All right. That's it.
Oh, wasn't there an iris?
Oh, was there an iris?
Yeah. Joe, oh my God. You have one job, Joe.
Oh, yeah.
You have one job.
I was thinking a lot about that last question.
Okay. All right.
I bought some iris bulbs from Apple Hill. I'm wondering, do I plant them now? And if not, how do I store them? I bought some a few years ago but I still have never gotten a flower yet.
Okay. All right. So irises, yes. Fall planting, spring blooming, bulbs. When I say bulbs, that's just sort of a generic category because they're actually rhizomes, which are modified stems. So you can divide them now if they're crowded and you find them at the nurseries. Nice thing is you don't need to chill them. They handle our temperate winters just fine. Now, so plant the yes, Joe.
What's your favorite colloquial term for a bulb?
Oh, it's a geophyte.
No, my God. You just did a bulb episode not that long ago.
Yes.
And you specifically called it something. And she said, I love that. I've never heard of that. I'm going to call it that.
Storage unit.
An energy storage unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
Do I pay attention more than you to these?
Joe, as the interviewer, my mind's always constantly thinking, next question. How do we keep this engaging conversation going?
See,
do I have enough
this is where we
snacks
differ
next to me? Is that the cat screaming at the door?
We're on cat number 3.
Joe's
That's been
making
at the
weird
door.
faces. Did I just say something inappropriate? Did the computer just break? What is Joe doing over there? Is Joe ever going to shave? Okay. All right. So irises. Iris rhizomes. There we go. Modified stems. So yes, plant them now. You could plant them a good long way into the winter. You could even plant them in early spring, February, and still get them to shoot up. Now, why you had a few and you planted them a few years ago and you've never had a bloom. Now, have they grown? That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if they weren't like you saved them, they got dry, they rotted out, and you planted them and you've seen no growth. That would be my thought. Or if they keep getting a foliage and no flowers, could be they're not in enough sun. Could be they're in too much shade. It could be they were planted too close together or they're already crowded. I can't see that happening though. Planted possibly too deep even. So they're just sort of stretching their way out. Those are possibilities. So when in doubt, just dig up, reposition them, try in a new spot, a sunnier spot, and go from there because they should flower every year for you. So make sure you're not cutting the foliage down before it fully dies as well because that's sending energy back into that rhizome. For hopefully some better flowers. So that's some troubleshooting there, but they're usually fuss-free plants for sure. All right, Joe.
I don't have any questions on that one.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
all right.
My question is at the top with the name.
Okay. All right. So if you have any questions, go ahead and email me, Marlene, theplantlady@gmail.com. When I email people back on, because I have like 3 emails, I swear a lot of it goes to spam and people have said, oh, I didn't think you emailed me back. And I'm like, check your spam folder just because. So do that. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, Marlene the Plant Lady. Of course, if you like this, rate and review. Apparently on Spotify, you could also give just like ratings, like 5-star ratings. So people have done that. That's very nice. On Apple, you could leave a nice review, and because that just moves you up and people find the podcast easier. And of course, share this on social media as well or tell a friend. And until next time, everyone, happy gardening.